What is going on, YouTube? I am Germ here, and we are officially now in the really crazy part of the offseason. This is my favorite time of the year as a League of Legends esports fan, and really it's not even close. I really like the playoffs of the LEC and the LCS. I really like the World's group stage as like a Western fan, since we're not usually in the other stages, and I love the offseason. Roster building, theory crafting, talking about rumor speculation, all that stuff. I love it. I hope you guys love it. And this was really funny because this morning I had a video scheduled to go live at 7 a.m. my time about a rumor that Flakked was potentially going to be out of G2. Now, lo and behold, at like 6:55, like 2 or 3 minutes before my video about a G2 Flakked rumor was supposed to go live, Wooloo decided to drop this tweet, and I was like already at work by then, or maybe I was like pulling into work or something, so I was like, damn, this sucks. I have to go the whole work day with this crazy news. I want to make a video, I want to talk about it, and I don't get to. But thankfully, at least I had that G2 Flakked video ready to go. I didn't have the most up-to-date information or anything like that, but obviously it still included some accurate stuff. And it was just like a little bit frustrating, a little bit crazy. The news cycle's so insane right now, but I'm still doing my best to get the news out to you guys as fast as I can and talk about the things that we all want to talk about. And at the end of the day, this story's only, less than 12 hours old. So I don't think we're doing too bad here. But the big news coming out of the LEC today, and it's funny because I almost talked about this yesterday too, but it still seemed a little bit speculative. It still seemed like a little bit up in the air. LEC Wooloo is now tweeting out, bot laner Flakked and jungler Jankos have been allowed to explore their options as they will not be a part of G2 esports roster next year. Now, this is crazy because, again, coming into today, we had started to hear some rumors. Wooloo had been talking in his Discord. Esport Maniacos had been putting out some stuff. One of the rumors was that Flakked, Jankos, and Targamas, all three of their futures were potentially up in the air. So I don't know if this is confirming that Targamas is staying. Maybe Targamas is still on the fence. I don't know what G2's plan is with the other half of their bot lane, but it does seem like, at least based off of what Wooloo is saying, not that like G2 is considering other options or maybe looking to replace these guys or whatever. He's saying that Jankos and Flakked both will not be back with G2 next season, and that is pretty crazy because Jankos has been synonymous with G2 for quite some time. Like, obviously the Flakked stuff is not that surprising. AD carry is absolutely stacked in Europe, and what Carlos and Thorin have said is that G2 had an opportunity to get Viper last year, and guys like Karzi, Hansama, Reckless, all these insane guys were available. We even saw a guy like Unforgiven come up from Mad Lions, and the fact that G2 ended up with Flakked, I think Flakked's okay. I think he's a bottom half AD carry in the LEC for sure. But the fact that they ended up with Flakked through all the options should really be seen as, I think, a pretty terrible move overall. Again, if Flakked's in the LEC, that's fine. He should not be on the best team in the LEC or the second best team in the LEC. Overall, that is a pretty bad job of scouting and roster building from the general manager overall, I think. So the fact that Flakked's out, not totally shocking. But again, Jankos has been G2 for quite some time. The fact that Jankos is going to be gone and Carlos is going to be gone, this is crazy. And it's truly the end of an era. 2019 G2, Wonder, Mickey, Jankos, Perks, they're all gone. Carlos is gone. Grabs is gone. Everyone from that era is gone except for Caps. And now Caps is really going to have to take G2 into this next era. But at the end of the day, I do think it makes some sense depending on who G2 is able to get. Obviously, if G2 gets somebody that sucks, it's not going to make any sense. But we saw that throughout this year, Caps and Jankos were no longer a top mid-jung duo in the world. And I think a lot of people, from that pairing, Caps is younger. Historically, Caps is better with higher highs. Caps probably has a brighter future ahead of him. And I think at this point in time, Caps is much closer to being a world-class and top world-class caliber player than Jankos is. And I don't think we really expect Jankos to get much better at this point in his career. Maybe he's going to plateau. Maybe he's just going to be getting kind of worse. And that's not like saying that Jankos sucks. That's just saying that at his best, Jankos was one of the best junglers in the world, and at this point in his career, Jankos just isn't one of the best junglers in the world. He's still one of the better junglers in Europe, but none of the junglers in Europe are really at this point, performing like one of the best junglers in the world. Maybe you could say Elyoya had a really good world, but without him even taking place in groups, we don't really know for sure. But I do think that there's potentially 5 options for the G2 new jungler role, and I want to go over those and then talk about some potential landing spots for Jankos as well, as we kind of just digest this information and talk about this all. So the 5 most realistic options that I really see, I want to talk about them in order of, I don't really know, maybe in the order that I think they would be interesting or possible or likely or whatever. I think the least likely option, there's 2 that I think are both pretty unlikely, but I want to talk about. I think Self-Made is pretty unlikely. There was a point in time where Self-Made and Jankos were battling it out for best jungler in Europe, and some people were like, oh man, should G2 maybe kick Jankos and go get Self-Made? Like, this guy's on the come up, this guy's insane, this guy is like really, really good, he might be better than Jankos. And then, Self-Made's kind of fallen off for the past couple of years. You could say it's his teams, you could say it's because he only plays one style, you could say because he's just not as good, I don't know. But Self-Made is available, and he's going to be out there, and he's maybe somebody that G2 could look for. At this point in time, I don't think it really makes sense I don't think it makes sense at all to kick Jankos to get Self-Made, even though I'm a big Self-Made fan. I do think Self-Made deserves a spot in the LEC, and I think he can still rise back up and be a really, really good jungler again. Obviously, you got to wonder how good Self-Made and Caps would be together as well. 4, I think Spica could maybe be interesting. Again, this is a guy who's won an LCS MVP, but it's also a really, really young guy who can play all different kinds of champs, all different kinds of styles. He's played with, big popular star power mid laners before, like Bjergsen, and would be in a similar situation as Caps. Again, this is one that I think is really, really, really unlikely, but G2 Spica maybe would at least be interesting. But then the 3 that I think are really likely, and the 3 that I think are going to be the most heavily considered for G2. The third one is Marcoon. Marcoon's contract is expiring. He is a, relatively inexperienced, relatively young-ish, up-and-coming jungler who, was like 3rd team All-LEC this split or something. And I think Marcoon, with these talented G2 players around him, could really take that step to the next level. Again, there would be no buyout. It would be easy to just kind of plug him in there. I don't know if he's better than Jankos right now, but he's at least close to Jankos right now, I think, from what we've seen. Obviously, he doesn't have the international experience and all that stuff, and yeah, right now you'd rather have Jankos at like Worlds, but if Marcoon starts to get some international experience, he could maybe pass up Jankos quick. Not peak Jankos, but like current day Jankos. And then the 2 most interesting landing spots, I'm not sure which one is more likely or which one I necessarily like better, but Inspired. We don't know what's going to happen with Evil Geniuses, and we don't know if Inspired even wants to be an NA. He's talked about not liking NA solo queue. I don't know. It seems like he likes North America. It seems like he liked playing with JoJo. Seems like he liked EG, but does he want to be an NA? Did he only end up in NA because Rogue wouldn't sell him to EU? Does he miss his friends, family? Does he want to go back home? I don't know, but that is possible. And then also just the possibility of the EG roster splitting up and him potentially, not being on that good of a team anymore, because who knows what's going to happen with Danny? Who knows what's going to happen with Impact? You assume JoJo and Vulcan are going to be there no matter what, but it's very, very possible that Inspired could want to leave, especially when there's potential opportunities like G2 and Fnatic back home in Europe. I think G2 Inspired would be super, super fun, but the number one guy that most people are asking for right now is G2 Elyoya. Mad Lions has shown they are willing to sell off players in the past. Obviously, they sold off Humanoid, and they sold off Carzzy as well. Or I don't know, maybe Carzzy was a free agent, but they got rid of some very, very talented players for them from the 2021 season. So maybe if G2 throws some money at them, they could maybe make a run at Elyoya, and that would be super, super fun to watch. Because like I said, Elyoya is probably the most probably the most promising international talent as far as European junglers and stuff go right now. Again, relatively young, relatively inexperienced in terms of international competition and stuff. G2 Elyoya would be an absolute banger. And then in terms of Jankos, what does his future have in store? I don't know. I didn't really get the vibes. I know we've talked about him maybe considering retirement and stuff in the past. I didn't really get the vibes that that's where he's at, but maybe he expected to still, be able to play for G2 for as long as he wanted. I don't know if he wants to go somewhere else. There's been jokes and rumors and stuff in the past of him maybe going to North America. And I always thought that TL or TSM or C9 Jankos would be really, really fun. But with all the rumors and talk of North American budget cuts and all this stuff with the teams not spending as much money, I don't really know if it makes sense for Jankos to go to any of these NA teams at this point. So I think that's kind of unlikely. And then is he going to maybe consider retirement if he can't find a really, really exciting spot? Or maybe does he not even want to play for anyone except for G2? But if we look at the LEC standings, hey, maybe if Elioya goes to G2, maybe Mad Lions could have an open spot. Maybe he could go to Excel. A lot of people are talking about, hey, maybe he could even go to Fnatic. The latest we've heard is that Vitality is probably going to be hanging on to Bo and Perks. So as fun as a Perks and Jankos reunion would be, it seems unlikely that's going to happen. But also SK is reportedly trying to spend some more money and form a super team or something. So I do think that Mad Lions, Excel, Fnatic, and SK could all be very, very interesting landing spots for Jankos if he is still interested in competing, and if he is interested in competing in the LEC on a team other than G2. But again, at any point in time that he wants, he has a very, very lucrative content creation career ahead of him. But maybe he still has that fire and itch to play, or maybe, kind of getting smacked around this year at Worlds showed him like, damn, we're really far away from winning Worlds, and maybe I don't want to grind all the way back up again. I don't know, but just absolutely insane news coming out of the LEC today. Jankos and Flakked reportedly out of G2, and I'm sure we're going to have some crazy, crazy, crazy news coming very, very soon. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. Peace.